Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business with the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is, we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important factors that go into establishing and growing your brand.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean sales, marketing, trade marketing, new product development, broker and distributor management, new product development, brand M&A, and financing. As a part of our show, we bring our guests that are brand founders and leaders, agencies, Amazon specialists, sales agents, contract manufacturers, retailers, and investors to discuss their experiences and share their insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please subscribe to the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website to learn more at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. We would love to have you along for the ride. Let me tell you a little bit about Agency Habitat. Agency Habitat is your one-stop shop for emerging brands. From packaging design to Shopify website development, from organic social content to connected TV spots, from brand activations to influencer programs, they offer everything your brand needs to succeed, all under one roof. Contact them at www.agencyhabitat.com.
So Bruce, tell us about our newest sponsor.
Glad to, Tracy. Tired of getting crushed by chargebacks each time your brand sells product? From dealing with hundreds of forms that all look different to fighting tooth and nail to get repays, managing deductions is tough work. And you're almost certainly leaving money on the table. Fortunately, there's a solution. Floret was built to help brands like yours. With Floret's software platform, you can automate your deductions workflow, get insight into your trade spend, and even have your deductions disputed for you. Whether you're a scrappy young brand trying to break into retail or an established supplier looking to get sharper on trade, Floret will put money back in your pocket. We've saved brands hundreds of thousands of dollars this year alone. Visit www.tryfloret.com to book a demo and learn more. That's www.tryfloret.com.
Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
Today's show is sponsored by Retail and Response. You've heard it a million times on this podcast. It's not about getting your product on the retail shelf. It's about moving product off the shelf and hitting the retailer's sales velocity hurdles fast. Otherwise, they're going to begin the discontinuation process. Trust me. A slow sales start can be fatal to your brand. You need consumers coming in seeking your brand. You know, the one they heard about on radio or saw on TV. If you think radio or TV advertising is too expensive, you need to speak with our friends at Retail and Response. With over 30 years helping drive hundreds of millions of dollars of sales for their clients, Retail and Response can get your brand on radio and TV for pennies on the dollar. Check them out at retailandresponse.com. That's retailandresponse.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail. Tracy Priest, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. What a great day here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But good to see you, my friend.
Yep, thank you. And before we get to our guest, I just want to make sure we thank our friends at Agency Habitat and Lowtown Studios for helping pull off the first adventure of The Road to Retail actually going on the road. It's been a great time, and we're very grateful for their assistance. So, Tracy, tell the folks who's joining us right now, please.
Absolutely excited for this episode. So we have Jeff Richards, CEO and founder of Mooala. So welcome, Jeff.
Hey.
Great to be here. Thanks for being our guest today. So as we jump in, maybe tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be CEO and co-founder of Mooala.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, it's been almost 10 years. So we'll have our 10-year anniversary as a business in March of 26. My background is leading up to Mooala was finance. So I spent about 10 years in investment banking. Started off in 2008 before the Great Recession, and somehow tightrope my way through employment with a couple of banks, and ended my career at BNP Paribas, which is a French investment bank. When I was there, I spent a good part of my time on consumer products companies. I was on the merchant banking side, which covered some private equity sponsors that would invest in consumer products, and I just got enamored with the space. And at surface level, food and beverage is so easy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they've just got a nice package and some decent ingredients and
everybody goes to the store.
That's right. How much easier can it get? And so I figured, hey, I could probably do this one day. And I had that in the back of my head as, this is a cool way to potentially make a living. I became lactose intolerant as an adult. And before we get too deep into it, the company that I founded, Mooala, is a maker of dairy-free milks, plant-based milks like almond and oat milk, etc. And so leading up to the creation of Mooala, I was doing CrossFit, and I got really into a paleo diet. And this is like 2011, 2012, which one of the key cornerstones of that is that you're not supposed to have dairy. And that's where I first heard of almond milk. I'd heard of soy milk, but almond was new. This is, in the early 2010s. And the almond milk that was out there was not great. It was, the early beginnings, a lot of sugar, a lot of stuff, flavored water. And so I started making my own almond milk. By virtue of having almond milk for an extended period of time and no dairy, when I got hurt at CrossFit and reintroduced dairy into my diet because I gave up on the whole thing, I was getting sick. It turns out I had become lactose intolerant. And that's when I was like, well, this sounds like a founder story. And, started heavily pursuing the plant-based milk business that became Mooala over the course of a few years later.
That's interesting, and it is a great founder story because it's not like, I found a brand for sale and I bought it and figured, what the heck. So Jeff, as we get into this in any competitive category, and we've seen some other brands, and you mentioned a couple, the almond milks, the oat milks, etc. In a competitive category like this, what's the meaningful point of difference or differentiation for Mooala in such a competitive category? And, we were joking before we went on air about refrigerated's even more competitive. So how have you designed your brand to really stick out, not only with the consumer, but when you go talk to retailers? How are you different, Jeff?
Yeah, that was always the question early on, and still continues to be defining and redefining and polishing what our purpose is in the market. Those early days, it was just the market needed some sort of competition. It was just Blue Diamond and Silk, and they split the market 50-50, and it became $2.5 billion overnight. So the initial goal was just something a little better, and the founder fallacy that is probably the most common is, if I could just get 5-10% of that market share, I'd be a very happy person. It's not quite that easy. but as luck would have it, after I came up with the idea for making almond milk, I couldn't find anybody to make it for me for a few years. I had the recipes. I worked with the University of Minnesota on what the recipes would be. I figured out the branding. I paid for a packaging agency, and then I went and was like, well, now I just got to go find a co-packer. That took 3 or 4 years to find, and so no one wanted nuts in their facility.
Didn't think of that. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if they did, then they just, the one I got pretty far down the road on ended up just taking my idea and leaving me in the dust. So, but when I finally found that co-packer that was willing to work with me, the idea needed to evolve. It was no longer just a third brand in the market to compete. It needs to be materially different. We had a number of competitors who had entered. So organic was clearly a missing piece in the market. Everything was kind of raced to the bottom, volume, fewest number of almonds in the package, highest amount of sugar. No one was going after kind of the organic piece of the market that was still price accessible. There were a couple brands that were doing organic, but they were very expensive and short shelf life, and there was nothing that was kind of the middle way, affordable and organic. And that's the niche we settled into early on, and that's honestly the niche we still occupy today is how do we get that consumer who doesn't really want to pay $6-7 for a little package of organic almond milk. How do we get them to trade up from their non-organic thing that they're drinking and not having to make that huge leap in cost?
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So talk to us a little bit for our small emerging brand audience. They're trying to decide, whether to go their D2C brand, let's say, and they're trying to think about going to retail. What advice would you give a small emerging brand? Like what kinds of things do they need to think about before they make that leap?
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to our conversation about the refrigerated piece. There's a few things that will just kind of almost dictate the way your brand should be sold. And you can look at it from these are no-nos if you want to have a DTC brand, or just more of guidelines for when you should be selling direct consumer or when you probably need to go to retail right away. For us, as I mentioned in our challenge, is finding a co-packer. The first co-packer that was willing to take my money made refrigerated products. And so I said, fine, we're going to launch a refrigerated almond milk then. And the interesting thing about our market is that people expect milk to be cheap. It starts with, post World War II, finding ways for the government to dispose of milk and get it into schools and selling it cheaply. And there's just no margin in milk. Grocery stores put it at the back of the stores and put it at a low price to lure you in. And this gamesmanship has been happening for almost 100 years, and therefore the consumer says milk equals cheap. In reality, you're getting a big old gallon of liquid for $2 or $3. That's pretty fantastic deal.
Yeah.
So for us, it's hard to ship. It was hard to ship early on. I mean, we're shipping water that the consumer expects our beverage to be cheap. They expect it to come in a large format. They expect it to be cold. And those are three things that don't really necessarily align particularly well with D2C environment. So over time, we got access to shelf-stable packaging. So we have both our refrigerated and our shelf-stable line. But really, it comes down to how is your product heavy? Does it need to be kept cold? And can your margins sustain fast shipping? Because the Amazons of the world, particularly, I will just say Amazon is going to ship it fast, and it's going to be expensive for you for the seller to help support that sort of go-to-market strategy. So you need to have the margin and your product to help support kind of that D2C strategy. Otherwise, like us, we were better off starting retail because there was no margin, no money to be made on the DTC side out of the gates. So
Interesting. So maybe touch on a little bit about the cost of going to retail, because it's not a cheap endeavor. You've got slotting, you've got trade funds to support, the retailer, you've got marketing. So how did you guys think about that when you went to retail?
Yeah, I would say that early on, going to market, our number one most critical factor in being a success was getting a broker, believe it or not. And, I think brand owners are probably all aligned that like the more hands that they're in the honey pot,
Yes.
it's you want to hold off on bringing as many people into taking money out of your business as you can, especially at the beginning. But for us, that was a necessary evil because for a few reasons, it helped us, number one, get meetings with retailers just in general. And then number two, when it came time to negotiate things like slotting and some of those promotional terms and, helping build out the cost model, having a really solid broker probably helped save us a lot of money in the long run because we weren't guessing and guessing at things that had huge financial impact if we didn't know the answers.
Right.
So yeah, I would say that navigating those things, there was still a challenge later on figuring it out. But I don't think we would have gotten to where we were today without having somebody guide us through that process.
Yeah, so going a next level there, Jeff, all the retailers are different, the classes of trade, their strategies, etc. How do you think through and manage your pricing on different SKUs, not only across different retailers within a channel, but DTC, because you do have some shelf-stable products, as you were just saying, but also then there's club, and you may or may not be in club, but I'm sure you've already thought of how you would do this. So how do you think about pricing and keeping it rational so that you don't end up with 19 price points for the same SKU around the country, and you get those calls from other retailers that go, Jeff, how come Tracy's 40 cents a unit less than I am?
Yeah, we do get those calls, and I think it's hard to avoid getting those calls.
Yeah, it is.
Because they all react to each other and then blame you for it. That's just the nature of the business, generally speaking. So apologies for that. I thought I had it turned off, guys.
It's live TV.
Do I?
No, I was just kidding. It's
Okay.
live, but that's good. Thank you.
Sorry, it was on vibrate, but that's not good enough for. Sorry, guys. And now my watch is going crazy. I should take that off.
Anyway, while you're doing that, we were just talking about how you're thinking through your pricing strategies across retailers and classes of trade and SKUs, and without, having your phone go off.
Yeah.
There was probably someone listening to our conversation, and
Right.
they're fearful that they're not getting.
Buyer wanting to know
yeah.
why the price at Walmart was so much lower.
That was one of my retailers. They heard I was about to blame them for the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It just went off. It was HEB on line one.
That's right. So the pricing thing is an art. We have found our category. We are lucky. There are a lot of bad things about being a refrigerated product that's in dairy. It's very competitive. It's hard to stay on shelf. It's hard to get on shelf. Slotting is expensive. The product is heavy. You can't charge a lot for it. There's a million things that are hard about.
You're trying to dissuade people
That's
from
right.
getting into the refrigerator.
That's right.
Yeah, don't do it.
No refrigerated liquids, unless you can sell them for $50 a unit. But one of the nice things is it's a velocity category, and so we're able to move product. And if you do have success, you're able to stay on shelf. You can overcome a lot of other fee-related, promotional related, even slotting issues by having a product that actually turns and does velocity. And the analogy I'll make, or I guess the example I'll have is, if you're selling barbecue sauce, you're going to sell barbecue sauce maybe to a customer maybe once a year, and they're good on barbecue sauce. With milk, it's 10 days or something. For plant-based milk, it's 10 days. So that can cover up a lot of deductions and problems that you'll have with distributors. And so we're talking about competitive pricing. We're able to really say, okay, this percentage of our sales are going to be deductions, and it might go up or down. That is, let's say, well, I'm just going to use a number. This isn't it, but let's just say 10%. That may be 11%, maybe 9%, but it's probably not going to like screw up and all of a sudden it's 15%. We're aware it's going to be pretty close to 10, and that's because some of the deductions I see people complain about on social media, LinkedIn, and whatever is like, oh, I got charged $150 for a broken pallet, and the distributor charged me back for that. That's a problem if you're selling barbecue sauce, because you're shipping in a pallet and you're not flying through product. You need that one pallet to really work and to be delivered on time, and no late fees, no whatever. You need as much margin per pallet as you can get. Whereas with us, if we're selling, a truckload of stuff and there's a broken pallet with every third or fourth truck that we deliver, that $150 or whatever the fee is doesn't matter quite as much. So that's the thing to think about, is if you're going to have a lot of shrink, if you're going to have a lot of spoilage, if your product is not going to be a high velocity item, it's something that people don't need that often. You need to think about the level of impact that each fee is going to have per item sold.
Right.
You don't have the benefit of scale yet, especially early on, and we did have that benefit of scale early on. So all that to say, we're able to price with a level of precision, I think, because we have a velocity category where we know we need to be competitive, and so we don't have a lot of fluff in our cost. Kind of is what it is, and we're able to track that pretty well.
Right. That makes sense. You're definitely in a high velocity category for sure. So talk to us, you mentioned hiring a broker. So talk to our audience a little bit about what criteria you used out of the gate to determine what broker to hire. There's a lot of brokers out there, big ones, small ones, national, regional, whatever. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about how you decided on one broker.
Yeah. I'm smiling because we if I made it sound like some sort of competitive process, it would be a little bit of a farce. So we had a national broker approach us early on, and offered to waive our retainer, and we said yes. It was,
Of course you did.
and so it was kind of a risk-free. I don't even think we gave him like a exclusivity period or anything there. We just said we want to work with you, and showed us the contract and drew a line through the retainer, and so we worked with them. And just for reference, a lot of brokers will, if they're going to take a risk on a smaller emerging brand, there's no commissions yet generally, or your commissions are very small, so there's not really a base business for them to take on, and they're well aware they're going to be responsible for generating a lot of your sales, and so they will sometimes want upfront value in the form of the not small commission, especially the large national brokers, that it can sometimes be at least one or sometimes two employees worth of funding per year. It's not cheap. And so for us, it was, there's only a handful of national grocery brokers, and we were approached by one that covered 70% of the accounts we wanted to be talking to, and we said, great, let's go do it. So that's not common, but we had a unique situation with that. And honestly, that's, you need certain things to go right in a hard business like this, and that was one that.
Are they still with you today?
Yep, we were still working with them.
Well,
And that was 8 years ago. So
no penalty for lucky early decisions, right?
that's right.
So Jeff, you touched on, and I'm glad you went back and explained it for the folks, that the structure early on is usually a retainer until the commission equals out, and then usually they drop the retainer. So well done by you and them for taking the bet and striking that. Tell the folks a little bit about what's the best way to manage your broker and communicate with them. Do you or your commercial lead, do you talk to them once a quarter? Do you talk to them once an hour? Do you like everything written down? Give the folks a flavor for what you think's the best way to work with them.
Yeah. Well, we're not perfect at it, that's for sure. I think that brokers generally have a competing set of priorities at times. Many times they will not be commission based off your business. They'll just be, and this is, I'm talking probably about a larger national broker, but you know, in a perfect world, everybody's incentivized to do the same things, to sell your product and to sell it profitably. And so I think getting alignment on what the structure is, and I think we do this really well with our Amazon business, is we want profitable growth, and how do we incentivize profitable growth versus just gross dollars with somebody who doesn't care whether or not we're selling our product for $1 or $10 or what our profitability is. So I think aligning on key metrics is important from the get-go. And then just realizing there's different motivations. So for instance, one of our broker partners is not commission-based, and it's certainly not, their compensation certainly is not driven by our profitability either. There's just a salaried group of brokers. And so how do you make sure they're, you know, doing anything to look out for your best interest other than, you know, at the end of the year, one of their bosses is going to review their performance with their brands. And, you know, what we found is that just comes with, you need checkpoints for accountability. It's frequent checkpoints. You know, that's something we've had to learn is they're salespeople just like you, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear a lot of the time. And the only way to make sure that things are getting done is to have checkpoints and have accountability and not always just trust what you're told, because brokers have many clients, not just that, but also many times a broker who covers a certain retailer, I'll just say, I'm going to pick one that we don't do business with, much business with today, but let's say Rayleigh's. We have a Rayleigh's broker, and that guy's been calling on Rayleigh's for 30 years. His ultimate loyalty probably isn't to you, the brand.
No.
Right.
It's to Rayleigh's. And that's a bad example because we just launched 5 SKUs of Rayleigh's. So sorry, Rayleigh's. We're doing business with you now. But that's important to remember, is you're your own best advocate. And as it should be, that account executive is probably very protective of their relationship with that customer. And to get them to do things that are abnormal, to advocate on your behalf and say, hey, I know there's not a review right now, or, you know, this is odd timing, but I'd really like to tell this, you know, my retail buyer this, and you're talking to your broker, you know, you might have to fight through some roadblocks where they would prefer not to inconvenience or bother, you know, their key contact. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. From the brand's perspective, I would like them just to do what I say, and you know, but from their point of view, they have a relationship to protect.
So one other thing before we press on there, Jeff, when you're managing them, do you and your team articulate the type of accounts that you will go for, or do they call you? Because this is like over the top drama queen, but if Tractor Supply had a refrigerated section and they're like, Jeff, I can get you in there, I'm assuming you guys would be like, no, that's not a good demographic fit for us. So is there a check where they check in with you, or do you give them at the beginning of the year, these are the target accounts that are kind of inbounds where you don't need to check with us?
Yeah.
How do you manage that so you don't end up with your product getting put in crazy places? Because sometimes broker compensation is, how many cases did I move? How many doors are you in? And suddenly you're like, wrong doors.
Yeah. Yeah. And that does happen. I think, you know, with our experience has been that you kind of do initial vetting, like, hey, at the beginning of the year, like, don't worry about these reviews. We have kind of one point of contact for our national broker, who then disseminates information to all the individual account executives who cover different retailers. And so in that meeting with that one contact, you know, we'll kind of go line by line and say, yep, we still don't need to talk to this retailer. This one's not worth it. This one's not worth it. Let's have a call with this one and see if it's worth it. But generally we'll have kind of like a yes, no list.
Yeah, or there's a check-in if it's something completely out of left field. That's great, and thanks. I just wanted the folks that haven't really done this before, want them to know that there is give and take there, and that you are the client. And if you don't want to be in Tractor Supply with your milk products, good.
And I will just add real quick that it also, we have a process in place with our account executives when we do get down to those reviews, because we're not entirely sure but we'll say, what is the slotting amount for this retailer? What is their, their customer demographic? And there will also be, even if it's on the yes list, so to speak, we'll have a screening even then. And that is the nice thing about having a salaried broker, so to speak, is they're not trying to just jam your product into
places it should be.
Yep.
So one other thing, Jeff, on brokers, how would you recommend a brand work through challenges with a broker? Any relationship, there's ups and downs, professional, personal. How do you work through that before you ultimately hit the eject button that it's really time for a change?
Yeah, I think it's just candid conversations. We've, within our organization, I'm probably more of like I'm the CEO, but I wear the sales hat more often than not. And so if there's going to be somebody in the organization who's challenging someone and saying no, it's less likely to be me because I'm more of the people pleaser type. But you got to have advocacy for yourself. And when you see things aren't going well, have that hard conversation, which is my least favorite thing to do. But, hey, XYZ is not going well. What can we do to correct it? And we're all about second chances, and we want to, address the problem. And then ultimately, if it's a mismatch, it's a mismatch. And but I think we like giving people notice and that, hey, this needs to be improved. And so no one wants to transition. It's a pain in the butt. You'd rather get it right with who you're working with. Yeah.
Right.
I love the fact that it's about transparency.
Yeah.
Hey.
Frequent, clear communication, and don't give them a list with 19 to-dos. Give them like 3.
Right.
Exactly. So Jeff, talk to us a little bit about the marketing vehicles that you guys use at Mooala to drive awareness and trial of the brand.
Yeah, well, there have been many wasted dollars over the years.
Trial and error, right?
Yeah, and the list of things that worked great is much shorter than the list of things that didn't. So, we took an approach, I think just through trial and error, that it's typically promotional spending on shelf that has the highest ROI for us. Driving trial. Milk's a weird category in that, sampling isn't the most interesting thing you can do with milk. You can't go to, a rock concert and throw out bottles of milk. It just doesn't. It's maybe it's becoming more that way, but as milk's making a resurgence. But so we've just had to get creative, and we've had some nice marketing campaigns, but they worked well. But I would say that on-shelf promotion is really driving trial by discounting by 50 cents for us is really always driven the needle almost better than anything else. And that doesn't mean you want to have a cheap product or that you want to devalue your product by always having it on sale. But there's been very clear when our recipe has been right and when our packaging has been right and when our brand had kind of all those tangible things going for it that it needed to. When we discount a little bit and bring a tag on the shelf and get somebody to try it and put it in their mouth, there's nothing that raises our base velocity like that one trial event. So the marketers of the world probably don't like to hear that, but
It works.
When it works, it works. Other than that, we try to be scrappy. Where we found. We've tried a lot of national campaigns, spending money on Instagram, on Facebook, and it's just you have to do some of it, but, we've had more success trying to find influencers that want to work with us for free or for the cost of the product we give them versus things tend to get lazier when you're just shelling money out for stuff. And we've got a really good hustle culture going right now, so.
That's awesome.
That's great. So, Jeff, you spoke earlier about some of the horrors of finding your first contract manufacturer. For the folks out there that don't do their own manufacturing, how would you suggest they go through the vetting process of a contract manufacturer? One of the things we try to do here is, whether it's Tracy and me or the guests that are kind enough to come on, kind of share the things that might not have gone so great so that other people might be able to skip a little pain and suffering.
Yeah. Well, you should pick a category where you're not like me and kind of having to take the first person that says yes. It's nice to have choice for a number of reasons. But I think I was thinking about this question specifically this week, and I think that a nice sign that the co-packer probably somewhat knows what they're doing is if they're organic certified, because there's so much that goes into that process, and all the products that Mooala makes are organic, and so that's the volume of things that has to happen to become organic certified is so long. A lot of quality standards to where that just helps kind of it's a green light that probably they're doing some things right. Whereas if you don't have that, you just got to do a little more diligence. That's a nice way to get that first step, though.
So, Jeff, one other thing there, when you're vetting the contract manufacturer, some of the things that could come up, and I'm just interested if they're important to you, questions around your last inspection. Were there any troubles? Were they dealt with? The importance of establishing what MOQs, minimum order quantities, might be early on when you're first starting this relationship, how flexible they are if you guys start, really kicking ass and you need more.
Yeah.
How do you weigh all of that kind of stuff in your decisions?
Yeah, it's there's a lot to consider, and it's tough early on because sometimes it can be very one-sided with the manufacturer. They know you're small. They've worked with many small manufacturers who have just disappeared or haven't paid their bills or didn't follow through on their commitments. And so, I think minimum order quantities is a big one. Are they willing to do a test production with you? The selling of this is so difficult, and obviously I didn't do well at the beginning, but there's two things are true. One is that you want to grow and be big and be successful. Most likely, if you're entering this business, you want to do tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. And the other reality is you probably don't have a product that is commercially available for sale yet. And so convincing the co-packer that you not only are going to hit that hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, but at this moment, what you need is the smallest amount of product they can commercially make without,
You make me 10 cases.
Yeah.
I am going to be a multi-million-dollar brand one day.
That's right. But right now, I need 100 cases of product. That's kind of the trick, is getting them to do that and not charge you some crazy amount. But at the same time, that may be the cost of doing business. So, they'll call it a plant rental fee, or they'll call it a small production trial. But generally, that will be a fixed fee thing. Whereas, when you're larger, you're paying, that's 10 cents per unit is the manufacturer's cost for making that thing. But they may charge you for a trial or for a test run or whatever you will, a commercial trial, that may just be $25,000 or $50,000. You got to come out of pocket for. So I think figuring that out early on, and then how do you graduate into the per unit fees that are reasonable and help you become profitable and commercially viable. What does that transition plan look like is super important to figure out early.
How does a brand find the contract manufacturers that make their types of products? Is it if you're new, you might not have much of a network to tap into. Is it as simple as ChatGPT and Google? Or do you maybe throw a Hail Mary and call a retailer and say who makes plant-based milks that you trust?
That's not a bad idea. I think I like that last one. Most brands will play it close to the vest, though, and so therefore I don't think most retailers will always just kind of be. Sometimes we'll tell their back-end system, and plug in all of our audits and things like that. And I don't think it's general. Since you brought it up, I'm just thinking, I don't think it's general knowledge that most retailers know actually where our products are being produced and what facility. And so what I did, this is 10 years ago, and so I can't speak the best way to do it now, but I just had the same set of keywords that I would search for. And for me, it was aseptic beverage, low acid aseptic beverage manufacturing. I Googled those same words, once a week for 3 years until a new plant popped up. And I called that plant and said, I need you. But yeah, I think it's just Googling and hustling. And I think enough of those are on the internet now where if you if you need help getting the keywords for what you're looking for, that's probably where you can call an advisor or bug another brand at a trade show and, hey, what is the kind of manufacturer they're using? What do they call themselves? And I think finding out what those keywords are, like low acid beverage manufacturer, aseptic manufacturer.
I mean, who wouldn't have thought of those keywords?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was the biggest trick, was figuring out what the weird words were that are specific co-packer processes.
Right. So let's talk about financing. Small emerging brands struggle to raise money. It's very competitive. Talk to us a little bit about if you've raised money, share with our audience your experience, or if you haven't, what would you look for in an investor?
Yeah. Well, we have raised money. And my background was finance, and so I had, if there was one part that was like just kind of an easier part than others, was not, I had never necessarily raised money for my own venture before, but I knew what the slide deck needed to look like to some extent. And that was the first, that was probably the biggest sales job, was finding the startup money for the business out of all the selling that I've done. That was probably it. And so when you're looking for investors early on, assuming you kind of know somewhat what you're doing, meaning you don't feel completely lost, I think it's important just to maintain as much control as possible early on. You got your vision. You don't immediately want, again, unless you need help establishing that vision, you want people who are just supportive of what you're doing and not going to be demanding an immediate return on of capital with return. And so, for us, it was a lot of friends and family early on, and super supportive, amazing group of people. We've got a large number of friends and family in our cap table who helped us along the way. It took an army, and later on we did, as we grew and kind of our sums of money needed naturally got larger as well.
Sure.
What was really important to me personally was just a personality fit. I think trust is just more important. I would take somebody who had only invested in vacuum businesses their whole life to come support my almond milk company, because I trusted them, versus somebody who had invested in a million almond milk companies and had an penchant for screwing people. So our lead investor on one of our larger rounds, and thankfully we're to the point now where we no longer need to raise money. But I had previous experience with him. He had worked on a couple other businesses that I had some exposure to, that I had also invested in him. That's how I got introduced to him. And I saw how he behaved in tough situations. And when he had opportunities to screw people, he was fair. And I benefited from that. There have been situations. I mean, nothing's perfect. And over the past 10 years, I guess he joined on 7 years ago, ish. There have been moments in time where he could have screwed me, and he did. And that's just I think that's rare. I really do. I don't think that's normal. And he's had a partnership mindset and approach, and I think that's just critical. And I'll take that, some days out of the week over somebody who has more industry. And by the way, they do have industry expertise as well. And so it's the best of all worlds. But I think having that trust factor there, where you've seen it and you should interview references for investors and, like, have you had a down round? What did it look like? How did they behave? And if it's anything other than they were fair and it, went the way it should have, then run away.
Good advice. Good advice.
So tell the folks, Jeff, how kind of life changes once they take that outside investment. The frequency of reporting on the business, maybe the depth of reporting on the business, and then if there's any dark side, like suddenly, Bruce put in $50,000 and calls me 4 times a day.
I think this widely varies, and for me, it was business as usual. We have quarterly board meetings and check-in texts, and I think it just depends on who your partner is. I think our board, my investors, Moala's investors, we're lucky to a certain extent. I don't think all reporting is bad or all check-ins are bad, but there's a level of trust there that things are getting done, and I don't think I changed that much, I guess is the answer. I put out quarterly reports, and which of course is a little bit annoying, right? But it also forces you to have some level of introspection about, okay, well, how are things going?
Sure.
Let's take a look at the quarter, and when you're going a million miles an hour, that's kind of like, it feels like that feels like work to me, is going back and like, all right, how are things going? I got to explain it to people. That is, but really that's not like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 2 on how much extra work is that, and it helps me take a look back at things. And
You need to know too.
yeah.
Well, what would you say? So you're a little bit blessed and cursed with your banking background, so you kind of knew how it was going to go. But if you were talking to someone starting out, and maybe I'm picking a number out of the sky, they're doing $5 million something, they're starting to take some money, and you pulled them and said, Bruce, you need to be ready. Once you take that, these things, you can't blow off doing a quarterly update, and they will call you.
Yep.
Hopefully not 10 times a day.
That's right. And that's a good point. So things that I can knock out in 3 hours in a day are not things I think that most entrepreneurs would be used to seeing, because I did that for 10 years before I started the business. So that's a great point. I think things that you would have to be ready for just in general is there's have you heard of the TV show The Prophet?
Yes.
Marcus Lemonis, he recently did a new episode, or a new TV show that's I can't think of what it's called, but it's the same thing, just on a different network. And there's a guy early on in one of the early episodes who goes, Marcus asks him, why do you need an investor? And he goes, well, because I'm bad at math. I'm not good at math. And he goes, don't be bad at math. That's a horrible answer. Don't be bad at math. So you need to, I think you need to, and honestly, this will come out early, probably even before they invest money, but you need to know the numbers behind your business. You need to know what your financials are, what your gross profit is, and be prepared to report that on a frequent basis. And the level of, you need to become a CFO in a way, right? It's like you're a founder, and most people know their product and their brand and the selling story behind it. It's probably a little bit more unique to have the CFO knowledge, or be prepared to deliver a financial package with some discussion that's high enough level for an investor, an institutional investor, but also in the weeds enough to where they feel like they're getting enough information. So, the training on that is, there's probably classes out there that you can take, and if your college or MBA education didn't get you there, but there's a format that is succinct and helpful for people that you probably need to learn to know how to deliver, and it's not just common knowledge. And by the way, you need to do it. Some of the most annoying businesses I've invested in in the past myself, are the ones that just never talk to you, right? I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'll get 3 quarterly updates out in a year, and that 4th one just kind of bleeds out somewhere in the middle. But you don't hear from companies for a long time, or you're getting just a paragraph of stuff with no numbers and no financial tables. That's frustrating for investors.
Yeah, I mean, everyone needs to know money in when, money out why.
Right.
And just shows you're being a good steward. Tracy?
Yep. So as we're rounding third and heading home here, talk to us about who's had the greatest influence on your career and why.
Yeah, man, I think there are a lot of kind of micro influences in my life, just like with all of us. And I thought about this as I was getting ready for this meeting, or for this interview, and I keep coming back to my parents, and I know that that's a token answer. And
That's a good one, though.
That's a good one.
I think that I've had a lot of momentary influences in my life, but the support and belief I've always had from my parents, I don't think is you. I don't think that's that everybody gets that. I think that I'm uniquely blessed to have two parents who never shied away from supporting me in anything that I did and pushed me, but not in a way that was abusive or self-serving. Just like, you can do it. You can do it. You want to go make A's? You can make A's, but you got to choose to make A's. Sure. And it took my dad some convincing when I wanted to walk away from what had seemed to be just kind of a cool, magical thing I had going on the investment banking side to start my own business. They didn't understand walking away from a good thing to start something that was probably going to fail. Not their words, but just generally that's how it is. And but since then, just amazing advocates. And my dad has always found ways to. Early on, he was an HR executive at a major oil and gas company, and I read a book on investment banking in college, and I said, I think I might want to do this. And he, pulled all sorts of levers and got me an interview or a meeting with, wasn't even an interview, just coffee with the CFO of the major national oil and gas company that he worked for 20 minutes in downtown Houston. And he gave me the best advice I received that helped me go get my finance degree. He said, go find where all the money's moving around, the biggest sums of money, and go find a way to work where that money's moving around. And so that's good advice. It's good advice. But it's just, anyway, they pull rabbits out of hats to support me. And I think without that safety net when things were bad, of course, that's my wife now, but I was not married at the time. But that was my unconditional safety net. And when you have somebody like me who's really doesn't understand sometimes what risky behavior is and just is completely unaware of the risks they're taking, and you come back and you show you're scraped knee and you're like, this wasn't supposed to happen. They just turn me around and shove me back out there and support me. I think that's
I love that.
That's
awesome.
been
Was it a sign to you when your mother started putting your old room back together when you left banking?
Yeah, that's right.
She was just getting ready. Jeff might be moving back in, honey. That's great. Well, I love it when you hear the parents, because you hear horror stories of uninvolved parents, and I'm selfish, lucky. That was not my parents. I mean, sometimes they were too involved, but in a good way. I'd rather have had that than, complete hands off.
Absolutely.
So, final question. Who is your favorite band, brand, or sports team, and why do you support them? You can't say Mooala.
Band, brand,
or sports team. You can give one of each if you want, or just pick one.
Man, and there's, I think it's pretty easy because it somewhat scratches the itches for the podcast as well as Third Eye Blind. I'm laughing because anybody who's watching this, they were mouthing it along with me. Third Eye Blind, the band. I've seen them live, I don't know, at this point, a dozen times in my life. It's the quintessential 90s band. I grew up, born in 84 and grew up in the 90s. And, the Third Eye Blind basically was the soundtrack for the 90s. Do, 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 do. And I think it's just, they're an amazing brand because they have that catchy music. We've all heard 10 of their songs, and if you don't know them now, if I played them for you, you'd be like, yep. It's just like the Eagles or the Beatles or whatever.
Oh, that's them?
Yeah. And but at the same time, their best stuff is the stuff that's not on the radio. And it's as a band, they're actually quite deep and have music that you never heard of that's their best stuff. And but they've been just so commercially successful while also having a soul kind of at the core of what they're doing. And just like anybody else, they're going to play their hits, but people don't go to the concerts for the hits. They go for the underground stuff. And I think that's so cool. And so I've been a nerd about them since high school. So
I think that's great. It's always cool when there's a album or disc or whatever now when you buy music and you hear a really great song and you're like, how come they never play that one on the radio?
Exactly.
And that's a cool one. So Jeff, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Before we let you go, how can people either reach out to you or learn more about Mooala?
Well, you can follow us on Instagram, Mooala_koala.
They're available at many stores
That's
if you
right.
want to support them.
That's right. We're available in over 7,000 stores across the U.S. No, I would say Instagram. The team has done a great job. We've recently done some packaging refreshing that is aesthetically very pleasing, and our Instagram page has kind of been modified to reflect that. And I think it's just a really fun place to learn about Mooala currently. And certainly there. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you're going to be disappointed. But except I will be making sure to repost this podcast. So do follow me for that purpose.
Well, thank you once again. All right, Tracy, the big finish.
Absolutely, Jeff. This has been great. So glad that you came and were a part of our podcast today. So audience, thanks for joining us. Continue to follow us on Spotify as well as Apple Podcast. We post every Tuesday as well as on LinkedIn. And we just appreciate it. And also check out our website, www.road2retail.com. We post all our episodes on there as well. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. Good luck out there, folks.